if we can get the slides back, I had a few pictures of the skull laid out in the lab, and what I wanted you to see, well, okay, there it is in the pit. We're now into the slides. That's fine. So you're looking down on the skull, which is that big lump between the various people that you see there. You can see the sweeping tusks before they were raised. Now the next slide. Okay, there you're looking from one side of the skull. It's done a face plant on the table. The back of the skull is toward the left. The front of the skull is toward the right. Those openings are the tusk sockets. That's where the tusk came out. And you'll notice that there's damage along that top surface. If you look at your handouts, on the back side of the handout, Adam has taken a digital model of a mammoth that is available from the Smithsonian Institution, and he's put on some, it looks like plexiglass planes that cut off part of the skull. And what's the uppermost surface here is actually that slightly slanted but almost vertical plane that cuts off the back corner of the skull. And indeed, all of the planes on this diagram are areas of damage. And although I don't have time, I think, to explain that damage really right now, it relates to human processing of the head of this animal to remove the brain, probably to eat it, and other tissues associated with the anatomy of the skull. And I'll leave it at that. Ashley, just pop through the next maybe 3 slides. There you're looking into the tusk cavities. And through another couple, and that'll be enough, all we can do. That's from the back of the skull. What I would draw your, okay, that's all. I was going to show you something else, but we're running out of time. We'll go back one. Right here, where the arrow is, if it comes back to me, there it goes. Where the arrow is moving, this is the, as it were, the back door to the tusk socket. And this part of the skull is broken open. And what could be the reason for that? Well, that's access to the tusk pulp tissue. And as best we can, and it seems that both the back ends of both tusk cavities were opened. And the bottom line is this is like a sardine can that's been opened this way, opened that way, opened this way to get just the juiciest parts out. And that's part of the indication that we're dealing with evidence of human association here, human use of this carcass. Now, my time is really gone, and I don't want to take too much from Adam's time. What do I need to mention? One more thing about this mammoth, and it has to do with the orientation of its tusks and something of their geometry. These are not the tusks of most mammoths from North America. These are not typical tusks for what are called Columbian mammoths. At the same time, they're not typical tusks for what are called woolly mammoths. North America has 2 kinds of mammoths that lived here during the Ice Age, and this is neither. It's a kind of mix of the 2. And in fact, we have strong evidence, certainly from the anatomy of the animal, that this is a hybrid. Now, these 2 have always been considered separate species, but you know, the world is a complicated place. And sometimes things we think of as separate species, let's say brown bear and polar bear, they actually interbreed. And this mammoth appears to have been a hybrid. The other thing that I just want to mention, and I've certainly alluded to this already, there is this evidence of human association, and it's more than just how the skull was broken. There were some boulders near the skull that are not the sort of things you would expect right there, just under normal, natural sorts of events and circumstances. There's more that I could go into, but there's a strong indication of human association with this animal. I think I'd better close here just by saying that what's important about this site is that it's telling us, it has the, I should say right now, it's beginning to tell us, it has the potential to tell us a lot about these animals and their biology. And in doing so, it tells us a lot about this part of Michigan history. 10 to 15,000 years ago, when the first humans were coming on into this part of the world. At the same time, it also gives us hints about the interaction between these humans and these mammoths. And that's important both for our understanding of human history and also ultimately probably for the understanding of why the mammoths went extinct. And that's actually a very big problem. It's not only mammoths that were lost at this point in Earth history, it's mastodons and ground sloths and giant beaver and dire wolves and the big saber-tooths. It's all these different kinds of animals. North America lost about 3/4 of its large-bodied mammalian fauna at this time. And so these are big problems that many people are interested in solving. And obviously one specimen will not solve them all in one sweep, but it can give us interesting information that helps make the case for what really happened at this time. Now, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Adam, who has, Kira said something about what he does. He has really revolutionized our ability to get information from our specimens, deliver that information to people through the internet, and basically make good on these promises, this potential for specimens like this to help us solve these great problems. So I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about the kinds of things that he's doing right now with this specimen.